The Tennessee Titans defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars 20-0. They improved to 9-4 on the year. The Jaguars fall to 2-11. And even though this game was a blowout, it wasn't a huge blowout in my opinion, and it was only 20-0 in Tennessee's favor. Like, Jacksonville could have performed a lot better than how they did in this game. Trevor Lawrence threw 4 interceptions. They only ran the ball a combined 8 times. Like, the Jaguars have been a disappointment this year, and I don't think many Jaguar fans had high expectations. I don't think there were any fans that were expecting the Jaguars to be a Super Bowl contender or even a playoff team. But my expectations for the Jaguars this year was that they would at least win 6 games and that they will be competitive in the majority of the games that they played, similar to the Detroit Lions. Although the Detroit Lions haven't been good this year, they've been one of the worst teams in the NFL. The majority of their games have been decided by 1 score or less. Meanwhile, when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, they haven't really been in a lot of 1-score games this year. They've been in a lot of one-sided games that have not been in their favor. On top of that, they don't look disciplined. They look unprepared. And I made a video a couple of days ago asking the question, what is Urban Meyer's future with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and will he return in 2022? And I said that I strongly doubt, and I would be extremely surprised if Urban Meyer remains the head coach of the Jaguars going into the 2022 NFL season next year, because this team doesn't look like it's being built in the right manner. When you have a new head coach and you're with a team that doesn't have a lot of talent, the most important thing is building a good culture in the locker room, building a culture that can be the stepping stool towards building something special. Don't really see that in Jacksonville. There's a lot of dysfunctionality going on in the locker room. Urban Meyer is not getting along with his coaches. There was a story that came out Friday, and it's crazy because that's when I uploaded that Urban Meyer video. And it basically said that Urban Meyer had a coaches meeting and he basically insulted his coaches saying, "I'm a winner. I'm not used to being around a lot of losers." And according to the story, he pretty much asked the coaches to say what was the last time they won at something in life. And they pretty much had to defend their resumes. Like, I don't really understand what Urban Meyer is doing with this Jaguars team. I don't understand how he's trying to run this Jaguars team, but it doesn't look well ran and it doesn't look well coached. The coaching staff doesn't really know what they're doing. I don't really think Urban Meyer knows what he's doing, and these players on the field don't really look like they know what they're doing either. Like, I feel so bad for Trevor Lawrence. If the Jaguars don't get this situation with Urban Meyer figured out, they're going to end up making Trevor Lawrence become a bust. And I've said this so many times that there has never been a quarterback who has been a bust, who was drafted in the first round to a team with a great coaching staff and a good franchise overall in terms of how they're ran. Most of the quarterbacks who ends up being bust, they end up not working out because they go to dysfunctional franchises. The coaching staff is not really good. The overall structure of the franchise isn't really good. And that's why the majority of quarterbacks ends up being bust, because they're not put in a proper situation to succeed. And for Trevor Lawrence right now, he's not being put in a proper situation to succeed. It doesn't make any sense why the Jaguars only attempted to run the ball 8 times in this game. You can say, well, JT, they were behind. They had no choice to. The final score was only 20-0. So the Jaguars, even though they were down, still had many opportunities to still run the football to get back in this game. And this is another game that the Jaguars offense has failed to score 20 points. Do you know the last time the Jaguars scored 20 points in a game was week 6 of the NFL season this year? It's been nearly 2-3 months since the Jaguars managed to put 20 points up on the scoreboard. doesn't really look all that great when we're assessing Urban Meyer and his performance. And there are going to be Jaguar fans who say, JT, this is his first season. You got to give him more time. Dan Campbell deserves more time. His team, although they haven't won a lot of games, they've only won one game this year so far. This team has been in a lot of close games. They fought in every single game that they've been in. The Jaguars don't really look like they've been fighting in every single game they played. And as a matter of fact, it kind of looks like Urban Meyer has lost the locker room. You see, the reason why the Lions are in so many close games, despite the fact that their team isn't great, is because they are buying in to Dan Campbell. They believe in Dan Campbell. They believe in what Dan Campbell's trying to build. The Jaguars don't look like they believe in Urban Meyer, and it's reflected by the play on the field. You can tell when a coach has lost the locker room. When a coach has lost the locker room, pretty much the players only play for one quarter, and if they're not in the game, it's game over. They pretty much gave up. The players for Jacksonville have given up on Urban Meyer. And you got to ask yourself, when you lose a locker room, why did you lose the locker room? Urban Meyer lost the locker room simply for the fact that he's not a great leader. And it's really odd because Urban Meyer has a book about leadership. How do you make a book about leadership and yet you're not a good leader of men? Urban Meyer is a great college coach, but a large reason why these college coaches fail at the NFL level is because, first of all, they aren't able to adjust to the NFL game, because being a college head coach and being an NFL head coach takes a tremendous amount of adjusting. Okay, you don't run the NFL franchise the same way you run a college football team. Completely different. Also, college head coaches have way more control and way more say in terms of what happens with their football team compared to the NFL. In the NFL, you just can't say, oh, I want this guy gone. You have to go through the GM. You have to go through whoever is in charge of the personnel decisions. It's kind of like a group task, per se. The general manager, most of the times, builds the team. The coach's job is to coach up the team, pretty much. The GM gets the players that the coaches want that fit their scheme, or they try to do their best job to find players that fits the kind of playing styles for the system that the head coach wants to run. So for Urban Meyer, he seems to be hell of power hungry. He doesn't know how to let his coaches coach. He always has to have his hand in the cookie jar. He always has to have a plate at the table. Urban Meyer is that one person at the dinner table he always has to eat first. He can never allow anybody else to eat before him. And I'm not really somebody who likes to call for people's jobs, but I think for Jacksonville, it will probably be in their best interest if they were to move on from Urban Meyer after this year, because this franchise doesn't look headed in the right direction. You want to see players rallying behind their head coaches. Okay? Do you see any Jaguar players defending Urban Meyer? I haven't. Have you seen any Jaguar players rallying behind Urban Meyer, motivated to play for Urban Meyer? Not really. You take out that check, you think they will play at all? For the Lions, and I keep referring to the Lions because both the Lions and the Jaguars are two of the worst teams in the NFL. They have two of the worst rosters in the whole entire league. But yeah, Detroit has been a more competitive football team than Jacksonville this year. You want to know why? Because Dan Campbell has built up a good culture in that locker room. You see, before you can start having success as a head coach, you have to build that infrastructure. You have to build that family inside your locker room. You have to make a brotherhood pretty much. You have to make a fraternity pretty much. And once you have that brotherly atmosphere in that locker room, then it allows you to bring in other guys from the outside because you already have it built. So then, since your culture is already built, you can go ahead, sign free agents, bring those guys in. Then they can fall in line with the culture and how the locker room and how things are ran. Dan Campbell has done a really good job of that. That's why the Lions haven't really been blown out as much as the Jacksonville Jaguars. For the Jacksonville Jaguars, this team, they lay down. They don't fight back. Detroit, no matter how many points they're down, they could be down by 3 or losing by 40. You know that those players are going to give it all they have until the final whistle blows. For Jacksonville, the game's over at halftime, and the players already look like they're on to next week. Urban Meyer has not done a good job of building a good culture in Jacksonville. And it's hurting Trevor Lawrence's development. And the longer Urban Meyer remains the head coach for Jacksonville, the more the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to hold back the development of Trevor Lawrence. And they're hurting Trevor Lawrence. You don't give him a good team. His confidence is dwindling. It's going down. I just don't see a scenario where the Jacksonville Jaguars end up having success in the NFL as long as Urban Meyer is the head coach. It's time for Urban Meyer to go. And if he stays in Jacksonville, nothing's going to change. You have to be able to acknowledge the red flags when you see them. Certain things are not going to change. Urban Meyer is not going to change. Urban Meyer is not going to adapt. Because it's pretty obvious that changes have to be made, and changes won't be made because Urban Meyer is too stubborn. He wants to win his way. It's his way or the highway. And the fact that he's not getting along with his coaches kind of makes me raise another eyebrow, because these are people who Urban Meyer handpicked. He's known most of his assistant coaches on his staff for years. So it shouldn't really take this much to get along with your own coaches. You're calling out coaches in front of players. Like, it's just a mess in Jacksonville. And it's time for Urban Meyer to go. And for Tennessee, we got to talk about Tennessee. I know a lot of you Titans fans are going to be like, oh, you only just talked about Jacksonville. Tennessee, much needed win. You improved to 9-4 in the year. You have a chance to not only continue to lead and win the AFC South division, but you also still have a shot at getting that number 1 overall seed in the AFC come playoff time and get that first round bye. And potentially, you could end up, if you get that first round bye, playing in that divisional round game, maybe with Derrick Henry. Because there have been some reports coming around that Derrick Henry potentially could return early for Tennessee. So that first week bye for Tennessee is huge. So they improved to 9-4 in the year. They blow out Jacksonville 20-0. Jacksonville currently is 2-11, one of the worst records in the league. Let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that Urban Meyer should be fired, or should the Jaguars keep him around? Let me know down in the comment section below.